Good afternoon, friends. It's been a while since I've done a grocery budget challenge video, and I was looking through my grandmother's Betty Crocker cookbook and I was inspired. So this week I'm going to focus on comfort foods, and my budget will be $21, which will be about $1 per meal. And I'm going to take you along with me in store to show you what I pick up and then how I prepare those meals. As with my last video, I'll only be using the ingredients that I purchased today, with the exception of cooking oil, salt and pepper, and butter. I'm going to be shopping at Walmart today. I have a couple of recipes that I know that I definitely want to make this week. So I'll pick up ingredients for those recipes first and then fill in the rest of the week after I have those things picked up. The most important ingredient to my recipes is chicken. Chicken thighs are $1.26 for a bulk package or $1.96 for a smaller package. I've picked up two different packages. One is $3.37 and then another one is $4.70. I'm hoping I can use the big package, but I'm going to pick up the rest of my ingredients first to see if it will fit in my budget. The next thing that I'm going to pick up is a 5-pound bag of flour. It's $1.22 at my store. I'm going to need flour for a lot of the things that I'm going to make this week. This 5-pound bag of flour is about 19 cups of flour. One of the things that I want to make is some homemade bread, so I'm going to need yeast. It's priced at $1.34 at my store, and I have a 40-cent off coupon. That will bring my cost down to 94 cents. If I purchase the larger container of chicken, my total right now is $6.86. And I'm happy that I'm doing a $21 challenge instead of a $10 challenge. Right next to the yeast is another ingredient that I'm going to need, which is baking powder. This canister is priced at $1. So right now my total is $7.86. Another ingredient that I have to have is also in the baking aisle. I'm going to pick up this Crisco baking stick. It's priced at $1.44. Now I have to admit something to you guys. When I was shopping, I forgot to write down the cost of the Crisco. So when I got to the register, I ended up having to put something that I picked up back, but you'll see that later on. I looked around to see if there was a generic alternative for the Crisco, but the Great Value brand only sells shortening in larger tubs. So in this instance, it wouldn't have been a good idea to get the generic brand. One of the things that I'm going to be making this week is chicken noodle soup. So carrots are a must. A pound of carrots is 92 cents in my store, and I've grabbed the last one. Carrots are a great item to pick up when you have a small grocery budget because not only can you eat them cooked or raw, but they also have a very long shelf life. I love to add parsnips to my homemade chicken noodle soup, but they're kind of expensive. A bag of 3 parsnips is priced at $2.94 in my store, so it looks like this won't be in the budget for today. Less expensive vegetable that I will be adding to my soup is celery. This bag of celery is priced at $1.38. Celery adds a ton of flavor to broth, and like carrots, it's great because you can also eat it raw. So I'm going to add it into my soup, but this will also be a snack throughout the week. The next thing that I'm picking up is a single onion. This is going to add a ton of flavor to the broth in my soup. Onions are priced at 98 cents a pound in my store, so I need to pick up one that isn't too big but isn't too small. I'm going to take it over to the scale and weigh it, so I'll know exactly how much I'm going to pay for it. I usually wouldn't bother weighing a single onion, but with this challenge, I need to know exactly how much this costs. It weighs 0.52 pounds, so this onion should cost me about 51 cents. Next thing that I'm going to pick up is a half a gallon of milk. It's priced at $1.28 in my store. I'm going to need this for a couple of recipes, and then whatever I have left over, I can also drink throughout the week. Milk has a lot of great things in it, like protein, calcium, potassium, and vitamins A and D. Eggs are also a great source of cheap protein. I'm going to pick up an 18-count container of eggs for $1.99. I'm going to need eggs for several recipes, and I've also decided that egg salad sandwiches would be a great lunch. Because I forgot to write down the cost of the Crisco, I thought that this whole cart was only $13.94, and I was feeling really good about the challenge at this point. I thought that I had $7.06 left to spend, with only breakfast and one thing for lunch left to pick up. My real total at this point was $15.38, with $5.62 left to spend. I've decided to pick up oatmeal. This canister is $1.56 in my store, and it has 13 servings in this container. Because it has 13 servings, you could actually double the serving on most days. I don't like eating oatmeal plain, so I'm going to grab something to add to this oatmeal. I'm going to grab some peanut butter to add into the oatmeal. I'm looking around for the cheapest one, and it looks like it's the crunchy peanut butter at $1.27. That's a pretty good price too, because this container is a little bit over 1 pound. This peanut butter will add in a great flavor to the oatmeal, but it will also add in some protein as well. Since I decided to make egg salad for lunch, I'm going to need some mayonnaise. There are a lot of different types of mayonnaise at this store, and it looks like my best bet is this jar of Great Value brand, priced at $1.28. This jar is just under a pound, and it looks like it has 31 tablespoon servings at 90 calories each, so that should be good for the whole week. So I now have all the basics that I need for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Because of that mistake that I made earlier, I thought that I had $18.05 worth of products in my cart when I really had $19.49. So I thought that I had $2.95 left to spend. I really only had $1.51 left to spend. Regardless of that mistake, it was time to put back the cheaper chicken and figure out how I'm gonna spend the remaining money. Fruit seems like the obvious choice. I'd like to pick up apples since I've picked up bananas in my last 2 challenges. I'm going around the produce section to see all of the different types of apples to find the cheapest one. As I look through all the apples, I start to second guess myself and think maybe I should pick up a really cheap snack. I had someone suggest popcorn on one of my previous videos as a really good snack, so now I'm thinking that I'm gonna grab that and then see how much I have left over for fruit. A 2-pound bag of yellow popping corn is priced at $1.66 in my store. And this one bag contains 25 servings, so you can make a lot of popcorn with this bag. This popcorn actually pushed me over budget, but I thought that I still had $1.29 left to spend. The cheapest apples are $1.23 per pound in my store. I've picked up 3. Hopefully this is right around a pound. Actually, 3 apples are almost 1.5 pounds. I'm going to take out the biggest one, and hopefully that gets me close to a pound. And surprisingly, this is 1 pound exactly, which means it's $1.23. This is everything that I'm picking up today. I thought that it was $20.94. Actually, I was over budget by $1.38. Because I thought that I had 6 cents left to spare, I decided to pick up the more expensive creamy peanut butter. Well, you guys already know I miscalculated, so I had to put back the popcorn, and my new total is $20.73, which means that I have 27 cents left to spare. That should get me 1/2 pound of bananas. I picked the 2 smallest bananas that I can find, but they still weigh too much. So instead of 2 small bananas, I'm gonna have 1 big banana. So this is everything that I picked up with my $21. So here's my first receipt. My total is $20.73. You can see where she had to take off the popcorn. And then because I was under budget, I went back and got a banana. I showed you guys that. It was only 17 cents. So I am 10 cents under budget. And actually, I got back 20 cents on Ibotta. They gave me back 10 cents for any oatmeal, and they gave me back 10 cents for almond milk, even though this is regular milk. So now comes the fun part. I get to show you guys what I turn all of this food into for breakfast, lunch, and dinner for a week. Breakfast days 1 and 2 is oatmeal with peanut butter mixed in and 1/2 banana. A glass of milk on the side, or you could use the milk to make the oatmeal instead of using water. Breakfast day 3 is oatmeal with a little bit of peanut butter mixed in. I also have scrambled egg whites on the side. These egg whites were left over from making egg noodles for the chicken noodle soup. I also have 1/2 glass of milk on the side. Breakfast on days 5, 6, and 7 will be oatmeal with peanut butter and 1/2 apple and about 1/2 glass of milk. To preserve the other 1/2 of the apple, if you have some lemon juice, you can sprinkle a little bit of that on it before you stick it in the fridge. The first thing that I'm gonna do is start making my bread, and I'm gonna make an easy rustic bread, and I'll include a couple of recipes in my description box below in case you are interested in making this bread as well. This recipe calls for kosher salt, but because I don't have any kosher salt on hand, I'm going to use regular table salt and use a little bit less than what the recipe calls for. If you're using a recipe that calls for kosher salt, but you only have regular table salt, you're going to want to use a little bit less because table salt is more dense than kosher salt. Okay, so I have 3 cups of water in this bowl, and it is warm water. You can see the temperature there. You want to get it around 100 to 115 degrees. Then I have 6 cups of flour in this bowl. I'm going to add my salt and my yeast to this, and then I'll add the flour into this bowl. And 1.5 teaspoons of yeast. It wasn't a whole pack. And then 1 teaspoon of salt. And now I'm going to add in the flour. With this type of bread, you don't have to knead it. You just have to mix it until there are no dry patches. It'll still be pretty sticky. I'm going to let this rest here on the counter, just with a dishcloth over it for a few hours. So this is what the dough looks like after sitting out for a few hours. I'm going to cut off some hunks of it and make little loaves, and then I'll let those sit out for a little while and bake them. These are the 2 little loaves that I formed, and I'm going to let them sit here for 40 minutes before I put them in the oven. This is the amount that I have left. I'm going to put it in my fridge. You can keep this dough in your fridge for up to 2 weeks. I'm going to bake the rest of this later. In this recipe, they want you to heat up a pizza stone at 450 degrees for 20 minutes before you bake the bread. I don't have a pizza stone, so I'm just going to be using my cast iron skillet. I put a pan with a cup of water underneath. The steam is supposed to create a great crust. So this is what the bread ended up looking like. I put them a little close together so they attach to each other, and it definitely feels like it has a good crust on it, and it smells delicious. I'm gonna wait for it to cool down before I cut into it. So I just took a bite after I spread some butter on it, and my husband did as well, and he said that it tastes like the bread that they give you at Italian restaurants that you dip in the olive oil. So I took that as a really good compliment. Lunch for all 7 days this week will be an egg salad sandwich using the artisan bread, 1.5 eggs per day, and a tablespoon of mayo. On the side will be a stalk of celery, and if you like peanut butter, you can put peanut butter on yours or just do it plain, just to add a little something extra crunch and a vegetable. These are the 3 loaves that I'm making with the rest of that dough. These are what the last 3 loaves look like. The dough was in the fridge for about 3 days before I baked it. So next I'm going to start working on my chicken noodle soup. And I have 9 chicken thighs here. So I'm going to go ahead and use 5 of them today. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add these to the crock pot. And then I'm also going to add in some pieces of celery, carrots, and onion to cook with it to create a richer broth. I'm going to use a recipe from this Betty Crocker cookbook, the chicken noodle soup recipe. And I'm going to save the other 4 pieces for the rest of the week. But I think this was really great to get 9 pieces of chicken for $4.70. So I cut off the ends and the leafy pieces like this that you wouldn't eat anyway, and I'm gonna add this to the crock pot where the chicken's cooking. I put the chicken on the bottom of my crock pot and covered it with water, and then I added the celery, carrots, and onions along with the salt and pepper, and I'm gonna let this cook on low for a while. If you have bay leaves on hand, you should definitely add them to your crock pot while it's cooking. I won't be adding the bay leaves, but this is something that I normally would add, so I just want to let you guys know in case you want to make soup. So my chicken and vegetables have been cooking for several hours, and it has a really nice, rich color. I'm going to strain it and keep the broth and shred the chicken meat. I poured some of it into a glass here so you can see the color. It's a really good color and it smells really good. So I pulled all of the chicken off the bones, and this is how much I got, which is a pretty good amount. And this is how much broth came from that. The next thing that I'm gonna do is some egg noodles. I'm gonna go by the recipe in the Betty Crocker cookbook. So I've made a well, and I'm gonna put 3 egg yolks and 1 whole egg in the middle of that before I mix it all together. So I've saved the egg whites, and I'll use those later on in the week for breakfast. And then I'm also gonna add salt, and as I mix the egg yolks in, I'm gonna add in a little bit of water at a time. I'm gonna work these egg yolks and 1 whole egg into the flour using my hands. I'm using my husband's muscles to knead this. He's a lot better at this than I am. So this dough has been kneaded, and I put cellophane around it. I'm gonna stick it in the fridge for 10 minutes, and then we're gonna roll it out into the noodles. I cut the dough into 4 equal pieces. I'm setting all but 1 aside, and I'm working this one into some flour right now. A couple of years ago, we were gifted a pasta making attachment to our KitchenAid mixer. So what this does is it takes away the work of rolling the dough out by hand. There are different levels of thickness with this attachment, so you'll start with a thicker level and then gradually work down to a thinner level. I know that this isn't a common item to find in most kitchens, but the great thing about egg noodles is that they don't have to be super thin or uniform. If you don't have a pasta attachment, you can use a rolling pin to roll it out by hand. This is what it looks like after it comes out of the pasta attachment, and I'm gonna sprinkle some flour on both sides. I'm going to show you guys a trick to make cutting your noodles a little bit easier. Once you've put flour on both sides, you're going to go to one of the ends and begin to roll it up like you would a cinnamon roll. This will make it faster and easier to cut your egg noodles. You'll go to one of the sides and start cutting off pieces. You'll unroll that piece and then cut it in half, and then place them on a towel for drying. Here are my egg noodles. I'm gonna let them dry on this towel sitting out on my counter for a couple of hours before I add them to my soup. These are the vegetables that I'm gonna chop up and add to my chicken noodle soup. Here are the vegetables all chopped up. I'm actually not following the recipe exactly because it doesn't call for celery or carrots, but to me, these are a must in chicken noodle soup. So I have my vegetables in here cooking for a little bit. I'm gonna cook them until they get a little bit tender, and then I'm gonna add the broth and the chicken. I took a little bit of chicken from the big bowl that I had made, and I'm gonna go ahead and freeze it, and I'm gonna use this later on in the week to make chicken salad for a dinner. So I've added the chicken and the broth. I'm gonna heat this to boiling before I add the noodles and then turn the temperature down. I want to suggest that you don't add all of the noodles at once. You can store some of the noodles in a container in your fridge and add them each day as you prepare this. I'm going to be seasoning this soup with some salt and pepper. While the noodles are drying, I'm going to make something else from the Betty Crocker cookbook for dinner tonight. I'm going to be making popovers. It requires the ingredients I have laid out: eggs, salt, milk, and flour. I'll go ahead and show you the picture of what it should look like. I just pulled the popovers out of the oven and they look perfect. This recipe made 16 popovers. Dinners on nights 1 through 3 will be chicken noodle soup and popovers. The soup makes 6 to 8 servings, so you can go back for seconds or feed multiple people. You can also have 2 popovers if you'd like, or eat them as snacks throughout the day. I opened the popover up and put some butter on it. I'm going to try it and let you guys know how it tastes. Popover was so good that I went ahead and ate half of it. You can definitely taste all of the eggs in it. It gives it a rich flavor. And the homemade chicken noodle soup is delicious. I love the taste of the broth. This is a really great meal. I'm making chicken and dumplings tonight, and I followed the same process that I did earlier in the week to both cook the chicken and create the broth. The next thing that I'm going to do is make the dumplings for chicken and dumplings, and I'm again following the Betty Crocker recipe for this. Just open the lid and it looks like it's about done. They're all nice and fluffy. This is a finished product, and this will be dinner on nights 4 through 6. I'm going to try a bite and let you guys know how it turned out. The texture of the dumpling is perfect. I really enjoyed this. I'm going to serve this with a popover on the side. Dinner on night 7 will be chicken salad. It just has a little bit of mayo and celery thinly sliced. You can eat this on the bread if you prefer. I want to show you guys what's left at the end of the week. A little less than half of the oatmeal, a little less than half of the peanut butter, maybe like 3/4 of the mayo. When it comes to the flour, it's, you can see right down here is all that's left. And my suggestion, whatever you have left over at the end of the week, you can turn it into some homemade croutons, which is what I've done here. I forgot to pull this out of the pantry. I also have most of the baking powder left over and a lot of the Crisco. This was a lot of fun this week. I was really enjoying using the Betty Crocker cookbook. My mom had a copy of this cookbook growing up, so the chocolate chip recipe in here is one I've been making since I was a child. And I feel like nowadays we mostly use Pinterest, so it was nice to use a physical cookbook. In the comments below, tell me if you guys have this Betty Crocker cookbook or if your mom or grandma had it. The copy that I have, it was my grandmother's. I would love to share the recipes with you, but because they are copyright, I don't think that I'm allowed to do that. I'll try to find some Pinterest recipes or recipes on the internet that are comparable that I can share in the description box below. If you enjoyed this video, remember to hit the like button and subscribe if you haven't already, and thank you so much for watching.